Yeah, good afternoon, students, viewers, and resource persons. I welcome you all to the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University on teleconference topic that is about the economic geography and geography of resources. And this part is in the second year, fourth semester. And you are going to, let me introduce the eminent professors are here to discuss regarding this topic. Professor Vijaya Bhole Madam, Emeritus Professor, Geography, Osmania University, and she is also awarded Senior Fellowship from ICSSR. And Madam has vast experience of 30 years in teaching and research. Under her guidance, MPhil 15 students PhD produced, and Madam contributed as an author and editor for the course material of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, and Madam has published number of research papers in national and international journals. And Namaste Madam.
Namaste.
And other resource person, Dr. Rama Prasad is an associate professor in the lab for spatial informatics at IIIT Hyderabad, where he specializes in remote sensing, GIS and environmental science applications. With a PhD in environmental sciences, he has an extensive background in geospatial data analysis, land use modeling and forest ecology. Dr. Chandra has published 65 research articles in national and international journals and contributed 5 book chapters. He is also a member of multiple academic councils and advisory boards. He has mentored students across academic levels including BTech, MS and PhD researchers, guiding them in advancing the applications of geospatial science for environmental solutions. Namaste sir. So initially today's topic is the resource geography. Now geography developed into two main branches. One is physical geography and another one is human geography. This economic geography is a part of or a branch of human geography, and it studies the spatial distribution of economic activities, industries, trade and services. It focuses on how economic processes are influenced by location, resources, infrastructure, population and cultural factors. So here on the basis of substance and things are broadly categorized into three. One is material, another one is neutral stuff, and third one is resources. So now we will discuss what is a material. Material is a raw and it is not in used. For example, bauxite ore is a material, but after knowledge and technology used to utilize, that will become a resource. Then the another one is neutral stuff. Neutral stuff is nothing but presently we are not utilizing that material, so that we are calling a neutral stuff. For example lithium. Now the lithium, after usage of these batteries, then it has become to resource. So resource is the thing which is endowed by nature and which is useful to the man needs, that we are calling as a resource. So Zimmerman he has given a resource cycle, that is a key concept in resource geography developed. He emphasized that resources are not fixed or static, but rather dynamic and human independent. And his famous quote is, "Resources are not, they become." It explains how a substance moves through different stages based on the human needs, knowledge and technology. So this is the thing in resource geography, and slowly this resource geography gained the importance, focusing on analyzing resources, human activities and their interaction across the regions. So in this session we will discuss about what is the importance of resource, what are the classification of resources and how to conserve the resources, and and also what type of advanced technologies we are using to apply or to inventory of these resources. Now, the first question is about to Professor Vijaya Madam. Madam, can you bring out the contents and geography of resources?
Okay, thank you very much. Now, before going to the concept of geography of resource or the scope and content of geography of resources, let me make it clear about the concept of resource. As he has said that a resource can be an object, or it can be a substance, or it can be a material. And one of the famous definition is given by an economist, that is Zimmerman. So according to Zimmerman, he gave the definition of resources as resources are not so, they become so. That means any material or any substance cannot become a so. Then the question comes is that what makes a particular material or substance a resource? So the main aspect to become a resource, it is the use of a particular resource. That is when it satisfies the needs of a man, or in other words, we can say that the resources are based on the concept of utility, usability, as well as functionality. That means every resource should have some use, or it should have some utility which facilitates the needs of man. So functionality or utility is one of the important concept of a resource. There are different types of resources which are available on the Earth's surface. And these resources, say for example, the resources can be natural, or they can be man-made resources also. So when you see as a geographer, we are more interested in knowing what is called as the distribution of resources. So what is being seen is that the resources are not uniformly distributed over the Earth's surface. The distribution of Earth resources on the Earth's surface is studied by the geographer with the help of man. Now, when you look at the map, or when you study the map, we see that you find the resources are concentrated, or they are placed in one area, and they are sometimes may not be available in a certain area. So there are variation in the availability of the resources on the Earth's surface. Now the question comes is that what factors are responsible for the uneven distribution of resources on the Earth's surface? That means the factors which contributes to the uneven distribution of the resources. So some of the basic factors which influences the distribution of resources is, one is the land or the soil of a particular area, or the other factor could be climate of a particular area. And next important factor is the geological factor. Say for example, the mineral resources of a particular area which is available depends on the geological structure of an area, because the rock is a combination of various types of minerals which are present in a particular area. So as a geographer, what we see is that the distribution of resources is not uneven. Now let me just come back to the scope and content of resource geography. Now we can say that geography of resources deals with the location as well as distribution of the resources. That is, where are they distributed on the Earth's surface. There are different, of course, there are different types of resources which are available in a particular area. This geography of resources is, as he has rightly said, that it's a branch of economic geography. So we study geography of resources as a sub-branch of economic geography.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, madam. So, in the same way, you have said that there is a, on the basis of the classification, the resources can be classified as. So, can you elaborate this?
Okay, it's a good question. Just now I said that there are a variety of resources, or there are different types of resources which are available on the Earth's surface. So, in order to understand their nature and characteristics, the classification of resources plays a very important role. And the resources can be classified on different bases, or there are different factors based on which we can classify the resources. Say, the resources can be classified as human resources or natural resources. So, when we talk about human resources, the people itself can become a resource, which are called as human resource. That plays a very important part of the resource development in a particular area. The next important type of resources which has been classified is a natural resource. So, as the term says that, when we say that it's a natural resource, that means these resources are drawn from the nature. Say, for example, if you take soil, or if you take forest, or if you take water resources, or if you take mineral resources, they are provided, or we draw these resources from the nature. So that way, one of the basic classification of resources is whether a resource is a human resource. Say, for example, sometimes agriculture can also be classified as a human resource, because it is the human activity of the human beings which makes agriculture as a resource. Then next important basis of classification of the resource is whether it is a living resource or a non-living resource, or in other words we can call it as a biotic resource or a non-biotic resource. So one of the example of a biotic resource, that is a living resource, is forest, or we can even include the animals also, or in other words flora and fauna of a particular area is a very good example of a biotic resource. Now let us come back to the next component of a resource, that is abiotic component of a resource. Now these component of a resource are the non-living component, or we can say that they are the physical resources which are available in the nature. Say, for example, if you take mineral resources, or if you take water resources, they are an example of the abiotic resources. Now next way of classifying the resources is based on its renewability, or in other words we can say that it can be like how fast they are getting replenished. Based on that, we can classify the resources into two basic categories. One is the renewable resource, and the another is non-renewable resource. Now let us come back to the first one, that is non-renewable resource. Now for ages we are using this non-renewable resource. Now what is this non-renewable resource? That is, suppose if you take the example of petroleum or coal, that is considered as a non-renewable resource. Now the question comes is that why these resources are called as non-renewable resource? Now they are called as non-renewable resources because it takes a longer time for them to be renewed or to get replenished, and that's why we are calling it as a non-renewable resources. And today we are in a state that most of these non-renewable resources, they are in a state of getting exhausted, and the very good example again is coal and petroleum. So that way we have two types of what is called as non-renewable resources. Now this non-renewable resources is also called as commercial resources, or it is also called as conventional resource. Now let me come back to the next important type of resource based on the concept of renewability, is the renewable resource. Now there is a lot of importance which is given for the renewable resource. Now let us see what constitutes these renewable resources. So renewable resources are those which can be renewed or which can be renewed at a very shorter span of time. It will not take a longer time to get this renewed or replenished. Say for example, renewable resources is the, say for example, if you take solar energy or if you take wind as a energy, they are a very good example of the renewable resources. So these renewable resources are also called as non-conventional resources, or the other term which has been used for this renewable resource is alternate source of the energy. And they can be abundantly available in the nature, and they can be renewed. So today there is a more emphasis on using these resources like solar energy or the wind energy.
Thank you, madam. Madam has clearly given picture about on the basis of origin we can divide the resources into different categories, or on the basis of exhaustibility, or on the basis of renewability. Madam has given the classification, and then madam has also given based on the living and non-living, abiotic and abiotic. And the sir, how are biotic and abiotic resources interdependent in environment and economic systems? Okay. Can you elaborate these questions?
Yeah. So if you look into a typical ecosystem has both this living and non-living, what we are discussing, and living typically what we are calling as a biotic, that as ma'am mentioned, it constitutes flora and fauna. So in order to have an equilibrium within the ecosystem, there is usually interdependence between the abiotic and the biotic systems. For example, if you look into the plants which actually perform photosynthesis, and for this mainly they require carbon dioxide and sunlight, which are actually something abiotic factors. So without these abiotic factors, actually there is no photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is primarily responsible for the primary production on the earth's surface. So we see a kind of an interaction between these kind of biotic organisms depending upon the abiotic thing. Similarly, abiotic thing also depends upon the coming from the biotic. Suppose now forest is there. Forests typically regulate the temperature. They also involve in the water cycle, which are actually forming the one kind of abiotic systems. Also, whatever the nutrients that organisms are absorbing, including flora and fauna from the atmosphere, these organisms, when they decompose, again they are recycled into the atmosphere, forming the abiotic components. So we see such kind of an interdependency between the abiotic and the biotic systems. So to understand more about this, how this interdependency is there, in around 1960, Lovelock gave a good hypothesis called Gaia hypothesis, where actually he was asked to look into the whether there is a possibility of having living organisms on the Mars. And during this process, he compared atmosphere of Earth, Venus and Mars. And in this comparison, typically when looked into the primary gases like carbon dioxide, oxygen and nitrogen contents, what he observed is there is a almost 96% of carbon dioxide within the atmosphere of the Venus and 95% in the Mars. But if you see in count of the Earth, it is something very less. Similarly, the oxygen content is more, something around 21% on Earth, while the concentrations are no traces of oxygen found on the other two planets. Similarly, the nitrogen content is also observed to be more on the atmosphere. Then the curious thing is that why such kind of equilibrium, disequilibrium is there among these planets based upon this kind of components. He finally come to a hypothesis what calling as the Gaia hypothesis, where he says that life forms the one of the primary thing that actually controls the atmosphere. So he compares Earth as a super organism where actually oceans and rivers form the blood of the earth, and atmosphere forms the lungs of the earth, land is the skeleton of the earth, that the super organism, and all the living organisms are treated as a sense organisms. So finally the hypothesis says that life on the earth actually try to interact with the atmosphere and try to modify its adaptation according to such kind of environment. So now we, by this experiment, it's also clear that there is a good strong dependency between the biotic and abiotic thing. This is on the aspects of the environmental side. But again, if you look into the economic dependency, if you look into the forest, we being the major economist will try to extract both flora and fauna, especially from the flora, something like the trees, we have the timber and other products, and from the abiotic thing, what is the minerals and the other resources, we will try to exploit these resources and try to give me the production process where we will try to increase the economy. If you take typical example of agriculture, for the best production of the crop is the abiotic thing, where actually it needs to have a fertile soil, which is the abiotic thing. So when we have this combination of abiotic and biotic things, there is a good production that actually increases the economy. So further we have one more dimension, what we call as a ecosystem services as well as the economic value. So this is a recent concept which actually came when looking into the what is the price that we can put to the services provided by the environment or the ecosystem, which typically includes both biotic and the abiotic. So in a healthy ecosystem where we see there is a clean air or the purified water or a good pollination mechanism, that actually increases the productivity of the ecosystem. So usually for the agriculture purpose where we have the pollination mechanism, that actually increases the production process. So if there is no such kind of a good ecosystem services that are provided because of the some kind of imbalance that is created by human beings. For example, if you look into the China part, actually usually insects, they do the pollination process, but then because the population of the insect is so drastically decreased, then people actually started doing the pollination process rather than the insects. So the free services that is provided by the insects are totally lost, and people has to pay for those kind of ecosystem services which are actually provided naturally by the insects. So a well healthy ecosystem has a good abiotic and biotic system that actually helps in increasing the economic sphere.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So you have explained about the interdependence of biotic and abiotic components, but in environment and economic systems. And you also mentioned some with examples in 3 planets. So very nice, sir. So then
I'll just continue about the concept of resource. The time factor as well as the technological factor also plays a very important role to consider a particular material or a substance as a resource.
Yes, ma'am.
Technological
time
factor, time factor also.
Yes,
and as the definition goes, Zimmerman's definition goes, resources are not so, but they become so when we know the utility. So here we can give a very good example, of petroleum. Some few centuries back, there was abundance of petroleum which was available in, say for example, in Saudi Arabia. And that petroleum was oozing out on the earth's surface. So the local population which was there, they were very much afraid that what is this fluid which is coming on earth's surface, maybe it is the gods some misgivings or something like that, because they were not knowing how to use that petroleum. But once they know that the utility of the petroleum, then it has become a resource. Then it has become a resource.
Very good example, madam. Yes. So in this way, we can say that It is not linear. So resource may become sometimes again it may become a substance.
Substance.
Yes. Okay, thank you, madam. And another question is here about how the forest resources are very important, madam, in the resource part.
Yes.
And how most of the countries, nations, they are discussing about this forest resources, and especially in various international summits, they are discussing about these forest resources. So, can you throw the light on this, madam?
Okay, it's a very valid question as well as a very contemporary environmental issue and a concern in the recent times. As you have rightly observed that it is one of the important resource among the resources. It is one of the important resource which is been discussed in various international forums or platforms, because it is one of the single most factor which has a wide ramification on the environmental issues. So here I'll put in this particular way why the forest as a resource has a lot of environmental significance. I'll what is called put this significance or the importance of forest resources from two different components. That is, one is the biotic component and the second important is abiotic components. Among the abiotic components, the first one is the land or soil. The second important component is the water resources, and the third important component is the atmosphere, or in other words, it is related to climate. They are the abiotic components, and the biotic components is related to flora and fauna. Now, if you take, and all this constitutes the environment of a place. So that way, as he has rightly said, that the environment of a particular area constitutes two basic components. That is, one is the biotic component and another is abiotic component. And he said that there is a lot of interdependence between one component on the other component. Now, let me just speak about the impact of forest on land resources or soil. Right. Today, one of the major environmental issue which is being faced at the local level or the global level is the deforestation that has been taking place. So let me just speak something about the deforestation, impact of deforestation on the land. So when the forest is been removed or when the plants are removed, then what will happen to the soil? The soil particles become very loose. That means one of the consequences of the deforestation is leading to the problem of soil erosion. It is leading to the problem of soil erosion. So when the soil is been eroded, it will have two important consequences on the land. One is that there is a removal of a layer of soil. The soil is been removed. And second important aspect about the soil erosion is that the fine plant nutrients which are available in the soil, they are also been washed off. So ultimately what happens, and one of the consequence of this soil erosion is on agriculture. Because so when a layer of soil is been removed or the fine plant nutrients are been washed away from the soil, then it will have an impact on the agriculture production. That means indirectly deforestation is leading to the problem of agriculture production. So this is one aspect of impact of forest resources on land or soil. The second important consequence of deforestation is on the water bodies. Say, when you say water bodies, it can be a river, it can be a tank, it can be a reservoir, or it may be a multi-purpose project. Now, let us see how this forest deforestation is having an impact on the water bodies. Now, just now I have discussed about the problem of soil erosion. Now, when the soil is been eroded, then it has to be deposited somewhere. So, most of the times the soil which has been eroded, it is getting deposited in the water bodies. Say for example, in the tanks or in the reservoirs or in the multipurpose projects, etc. So, then what will be the impact of this what is called as deposition of the soil? Deposition of the soil in the water bodies. So, this deposition of soil in the water bodies is leading to the problem of siltation of the water bodies. That is, there is a lot of sedimentation that has been taking place in the water bodies such as tanks or reservoirs, etc. So, due to this, the water potential which has been available in the tanks or the reservoir, it is getting reduced. And suppose if there is a lot of sedimentation or soil is deposited in the river, then it is also leading to the problem of flooding also, right? And when the when there is a siltation of the water bodies, say for example the tank or the reservoir, then the potential of water, that is the water available in the tank, is getting reduced, in the sense that the irrigation potential is getting reduced and and the water available for generating the hydroelectricity is also getting reduced. So, that way, suppose if you take the impact of loss of irrigation potential is also again leading to the problem of agriculture production. That way agriculture production is getting lost. Now, let me come back to the third component, abiotic component. Already we have discussed about the land or soil or water bodies. The next important component is the air or atmosphere. Now, let us see how deforestation is responsible for how it is influencing the atmosphere. If there is a deforestation, then it is affecting the important components of the atmosphere or air, such as humidity that is present in the air. So, suppose if there is if deforestation is taking place, then the humidity or the moisture which has been available due to evapotranspiration from the leaves of the plants, it is getting decreased. So, humidity plays a very important role from the climatic point of view. Now, the next important aspect which is getting influence atmospheric point of view is the rainfall. That is, more the humidity available in a particular area, more is the formation of clouds. So, in the absence of forest or deforestation, rainfall will be influenced. Or in other words, we can say that there will be a decreasing presence of rainfall. And the third important factor, atmospheric factor, which has been influenced is the temperature. That is, the forest use carbon dioxide, and in the absence of forests, there will be more carbon dioxide which is available in the air, and it is considered as a greenhouse gas. And this is responsible for increasing the temperature, and one of the important issue which will be which is very important from the climate change point of view is the concept of global warming. So, these are the consequences of deforestation on land, water bodies as well as atmosphere. Now, these are the abiotic components of the atmosphere. Now, the next component is the biotic component of the biotic consequence of the deforestation. So, due to deforestation,
meanwhile we will give for the viewers, so they can, if you have any doubts on this, you can contact to 040-236-80456. Again I will repeat. So, if you have any doubts, you can raise the questions regarding the economic geography or resource geography on 040-236-80456. Thank you, madam.
Okay, and now
Continue, madam.
Okay, now the second important consequence of the deforestation is felt on the biotic resource. Now this biotic resource constitutes both the flora and fauna of a particular area. So some of the exotic species or some of the endemic species, they are lost forever due to deforestation. So that way what we can see is that it's not only the question of deforestation, but it is the whole environment which has been affected because of the deforestation that is taking place, and it has a lot of ramification on the environmental issues both at the local level as well as at the global level.
Thank you, madam. So, yeah. Hello. Hello.
Hello, sir. My name is Sairam. I'm calling from Kamli.
Okay. So,
Sir, my
if you,
question is to Chandra, Prasad, sir.
yeah.
How command area development played a key role in elevating regional inequality? Thank you very much.
Can you repeat again? How?
Command area development programs for regional inequality
Yes.
sir.
Command area development.
Yes, thank you.
I don't know the question.
CAD, command area development. How it is influencing the resources, like.
Okay, I think I can give an answer for this one.
Yeah.
CAD, that is command area development, is the catchment area of any river. And one of the problem again I'll link it with the deforestation, is that it may lead to the problem of deforestation and available of water resources or the irrigation potential in a particular area.
Yes. Okay, thank you, madam. Then, any geography students, you can raise the questions to 040-236-80456. And now madam has clearly explained about how the deforestation leads to erosion, and also that there will be a climatic change, and these are all leads to the depletion of resources are also. And then the next question is that, so the resources are depleting because of maximum or utilization of these resources. So sir, can you tell me the resource conservation is very important. Could you explain the steps involved in conserving resources?
So mainly we see that, as ma'am had mentioned, all natural resources, especially forest and water, we call these two resources as most abused resources because they are over exploited beyond their capacity. So currently there is a need for this conservation of these resources, where actually people are coming with a different kind of suggestions. So now actually why there is a need for this conservation? Because there is a concept called ecological footprint. Ecological footprint is defined as the amount of land and water required for the generation of resources of one person, and the same amount of land and water that is required to dispose the waste. So the concept of ecological footprint indicates that what is the area that per capita, that is a per person on the globe, on an average it was decided as 2.7 global hectares per each person. So now if you look into the globally, we have developed countries, developing countries and underdeveloped countries. So most of these resources are exploited by the developed countries where their ecological footprint is maximum. As I mentioned, average is 2.7, but the major is for the US countries is 9.7 hectares. So in order to satisfy the needs of the people, Earth actually has to produce the resources, and what we call that as a biocapacity. So the biocapacity of the Earth is 1.5 hectares and the ecological footprint is the 2.7 hectares, and there is a deficit of 1.2 hectares. So in this context, the concept of Earth overshoot came, where they say that every year whatever the resources that are made for 1 year, we are consuming it in a maximum within some 7 to 8 months. That means we are in deficit of for the 4 months. So this concept brings an awareness that the resources are exhausted in a very high way, which is not a sustainable manner. So if you look into the Hicksonius sustainable income theory, where actually the theory is that I'm well being at the starting of the week, the same way I'll continue at the end of the week. That means I should go in a sustainable way of the conserving the resources. So how to conserve the resources? First is to assess actually what is the loss. So if I know that what is the loss, then I'll try to put some kind of management as well as the monitoring mechanism. Then I can go for the conservation measures. So regarding this, now we have geospatial technology which plays a major role, and utilizing the past satellite data sets way back from 1970s, we can actually assess what are the resource potential of an area, how these resources are changing over time with the over exploitation of the human beings. So these satellite data sets provide us the what is the extent of the area that are changing. So we can monitor and we can finally come up with some kind of conservation measures, saying that this is the trend of depletion of the resources, and if you are not putting any such kind of any conservation measures, then ultimately the resources are ultimately depleted. So resource depletion, especially as ma'am mentioned about the water as well as the forest, especially forest has a serious impact on the environment. So what currently we are calling it as a climate change.
Okay, now
thank you, sir.
In continuation of this, he has also emphasized on the significance or importance of forest. I just want to make a point here. According to international standards, 33% of the geographical area should be under forest. So that speaks volume of the importance of the forest. So there is a famous Sanskrit adage, Vriksho Rakshati Rakshata. That means you protect forest and in turn forest will protect you.
Yes, madam. Thank you, madam. Yes, definitely afforestation is one of the method for conservation, madam. So
Yes.
this is the one. And another thing that here, can you, sir, can you explain the link between deforestation and climate change broadly?
So most of this part actually madam covered, deforestation and climate change, but just to emphasize, usually trees or the plants, they are the sinks, they are acting as a sinks. So mostly we see carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere, and this carbon dioxide, what we use the term sequestration, it is absorbed by trees, it is absorbed in the soil. Soil has a 3 times carbon sequestration potential compared to that of the forest or the any vegetation, and maximum the carbon sequestration something around 50% what we see in the water. So water, soil and vegetation are the primary one that are actually absorbing the carbon dioxide, and it was in some equilibrium over time, but then the excess human interventions into the ecosystem changed the imbalance, and what actually we are calling as a pollution thing. So if you look into the vegetation, the forest areas or any tree, they are the sinks of carbon dioxide. So when we do the logging activities, the timber what we say, the carbon is stored in the living tree, and when it is logged, it is in the stored form. But then once if that timber or any wood or fuel, when it is subject to the process of the combustion, again there is a release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So on one hand there is actually degradation, depletion and deforestation conditions what we see, leading to the reduced sinks. Now I use the word sinks than a forest. So we see the reduced sinks. At the same time we see the human activities, more urbanization activities that actually releasing carbon dioxide into the, or in fact any kind of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So there is a decrease of the sinks and there is an increase of the sources that ultimately changes the carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere or any greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. So especially if you look into these high concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, they typically trap the infrared radiations. They does not allow these radiations back into the atmosphere. So trapping of these infrared radiations by the carbon dioxide actually warms the atmosphere, and where actually we have that as a greenhouse gas effect. So whenever there is such kind of increase in the temperature, further ultimately it has an impact, something like an global warming and the glacier melting, leading to the increase in the sea levels and flooding of the coastal areas. Ultimately we see that is the impact of the climate change. So understanding the what is the consequences of the deforestation, then people are coming with different kinds of mechanism. So we have different amendments or the mechanisms like Kyoto Protocol or the Doha Amendment or the Paris Agreement, where actually countries they meet, they look into what is the increase in the carbon dioxide concentrations, and they put some target to the countries, especially for the developed countries, who are primarily responsible for the release of these carbon emissions into the atmosphere. So in order to reduce the carbon dioxide concentrations for which they are responsible, or to achieve that kind of target, they actually come up with some kind of mechanism called clean development mechanism, where actually they can do some kind of activities that removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So one simple way is the going with some kind of afforestation activities. So mostly doing such kind of afforestation activities in the developed countries is quite expensive. So what they do is that they'll try to invest in the other developed and the underdeveloped countries. So since the gases are circulating, absorbing these gases at any point in the global thing is acceptable. So as a process of this, the countries invest in the other countries and they compensate that what we call as a carbon credits. Or if they are not able to invest, what they will do, the country, the developed, underdeveloped or developing countries, they do this kind of afforestation activities and they sell these carbon credits to those developed countries to reach their what is the target that is given by these Kyoto Protocol or the agreement thing. So this is a one mechanism where we will try to reduce the carbon dioxide, ultimately dealing with the climate change process. There are also some organizations which also actually trap carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and there are different mechanisms. Either they can drill into the earth, what we call as a geological sequestration, or people are also coming with some kind of a mechanism where there is called vegan diamonds. So from the carbon, they under the high temperatures and the pressure, they convert carbon dioxide into methane, and methane over some different steps, finally it is converted into diamond. But then again, question is that when you having this kind of a combustion process with high pressure and high temperature, they use all green energies, what is the solar energy or the wind energy. So there is no any release of carbon dioxide by this mechanism, and this is a good way actually to combat with some kind of a climate change problem by sequestrating carbon dioxide.
Oh, thank you, sir. So even developed countries, they are adopting the green technologies. So by these we can also conserve the resources.
Okay.
And yes, madam.
There was a very good question on the command area development.
Yes,
and the problem of soil erosion.
Yes.
So here we can give a very good example from Telangana itself.
Okay.
One of the oldest irrigation project in Telangana is Nizam Sagar project.
Yes, madam.
And over a period of time, because of the problem of soil erosion, the irrigation potential in the command area of Nizam Sagar project has been reduced.
That is a impact. Okay. So then the final question, madam, like can you now the advanced technologies we are using already, Sari has explained about the remote sensing GIS, all this technology, the role of geospatial technology in resource management. Can you tell me how these technologies are used in order to resource inventory and other planning?
Okay. So when you talk about geospatial technology, it includes remote sensing, then GIS. Okay, these are, I'll just restrict myself to these two technologies. One is remote sensing and second is GIS. Now, from the resource perspective, these technological tools are playing a very important role. Now, suppose if you take the inventory of the resources, or if you take the mapping of the resources, by conventional way, it used to take a lot of time for identifying and making an inventory of the resources. Then comes one of the important technology, geospatial technology, that is remote sensing. So earlier, when you want to make an inventory of a resources, you have to go to the field. But now, without being on the earth surface or without going into the field, it is possible to give the information on the resources which are available on the earth surface. And this is possible with the help of remote sensing technology. Now let us see what is this remote sensing. Remote means without coming into contact with the earth surface. So we are not on the earth surface, but still we are able to get information about the earth surface. The term sensing means to get the information. That means remote sensing is a technological tool by which we can get the information about the earth surface. Now let us see its significance in the resource geography or resource management. So one of the important way by which we can use this technology is inventory of the resource, then mapping of the resource. Yes, as a geographer, very important, just now we have discussed in the initial stage that distribution and mapping is the core of the geographical studies. So that way we can get lot of information about the where the resources are available. So one important contribution of remote sensing technology is identification of the resources and mapping the resources. The second important aspect is mapping the what is called updating the resource mapping. If you take the conventional sources of resource mapping, it used to take a lot of time to update the availability of a resource in a particular area. Maybe it is decades of time. But with the application of this remote sensing technology, we are able to do the updating of the resources which are available on the earth surface.
Even we can know the resources in inaccessible areas.
Inaccessible areas also. Yes. So that is the greatest advantage. And next important advantage is that we can know or we can do the monitoring of the resources. That is how the resources are increasing or decreasing in a particular area. Or in other words, we can say it is the monitoring of the resources. And we can do that means the change detection that is available in a particular area. Say for example, what are the water bodies which are available some 10 years or 20 years back, and what are the water bodies which are available now, and how many of them have been lost in the or how much area under forest is increased or decreased. So this type of change detection we can make about the resources, and that is possible because of the repetitive coverage of the satellites. That is, the satellites will come back to the same position at a gap of maybe 5 days or 10 days or maybe 15 days interval. So that way we can do monitoring of the resources also. And next thing is if you take the GIS, remote sensing will provide a lot of information on the availability or information about the resources. Then mapping of the resources is done with the help of GIS.
Yes,
so that way these
so
two
in
important.
this way we will use this advanced technologies. And finally, question is that here the two important terms are in resources. One is that optimum use of resources, and another one is sustainable use of resources. Can you please elaborate this question, sir?
So mostly optimum is actually whatever the resources that are available, so that the resources may continue over time, that may lead to the sustainability. A best example is that now there are some resources in the country where actually if they overexploit them, and over time there are no resources available. But if they plan it properly, and whatever the investment, whatever the profit or economy they get from particular resources, if they invest in another resources, that actually lead to the country's development. I'll give one example of the Norway. Norway has actually very good oil resources. Around 1960 they have identified this thing, and they actually come with a very good governance process where they sustainably utilize the resources, and whatever the income that is generated from that resources, they also invested in the other things. So they are not depending on any other country for the any fuel import, something like that, but they went in a sustainable manner where actually now they are in a good condition. While if you take on contrary an example of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, they have very good mineral things, and but because of the politics, because of the lack of a proper governance, they used all this in a unsustainable manner, such that now they exported all this to other countries, but the country could not do any good economically progress. As a result, it is something in the underdeveloped or the still in the poor country. So that actually matters, where we have to look into, I should sustain myself currently and also I sustain my future generations. I'll end one thing. There is a ad actually where a son and his father both actually drives in a car, and at the signal father still on the engine, then suddenly son says that Papa, in future I will start a cycle shop. Why means we can future, if you start using the these resources in an unsustainable manner, finally there are no these non-renewable resources, ultimately then people has to depend upon such kind of thing. So going back to the cycle process. So these kind of ads also bring some kind of awareness that how actually we are using the resources and what is the mechanism that we can go in a sustainable manner.
Thank you, sir. You have given with a suitable example, you have given about the optimum use and sustainable use of these resources. And let me conclude that today we have discussed about the geography of resources, and we know the importance of resources, and we also done about how to utilize this optimum use of resources and classification of resources and conservation of resources. And I think that students of geography, they have gained the knowledge by these eminent professors. And finally, what we can say that we are also come across with the sustainable resource management. Management is also one of them. And finally, I can say that importance plays a vital role in the development of any nation. It plays a vital role. So this is the concluding remarks. And thank you very much, madam.
I can also add to the conclusion.
Okay.
Say, ultimately we can say that resource geography plays a very important role in the development and planning of a particular area. And to conclude, I will say that be a part of the nature and not apart from the nature.
Okay. Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir.